Well, there we go. Yeah. Th Thanks, Karen. Karen asked me, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and or at least I started working on this, and it was wonderful for me because I went through, especially the 12 and 12, and I'm going to talk about each step, just a little bit of how it affected me, areas that I neglected. And but thank God I kept coming, kept coming back and that so I did. I read it and I took taken notes. I set it down and I took notes, but not so much as memorization. Like I was trying to think, I got to remember. I don't. Because what you're going to hear from me is the truth. You're going to hear honesty, and that didn't come from me until I walked into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that was really important. So as Karen said, last week I had 20 years of continuous sobriety. I did not go back out and drink, and maybe I can get into why I believe, because I was just willing to. Um, I just didn't want to drink anymore. You'll also hear a few times through this, and still makes me cry. I got into the program. Karen and Mary and who else, Dee Dee, have heard this story before, but my two sons. They were 14 and 13 at the time. And I cried when I first got in about them. And till today, it still affects me of how much, but it's all based on love. And I'll tell you a wonderful story about that in a little bit too. Yeah, so I'm not a teenager anymore. I'm 20. Okay, so there was a gap there that things weren't so good, and that and I was thinking about do I have a theme or a thought, and everything I'm going to say here has come from somebody else that has freely given me the information, and how much people have helped me through the years with their kind words and their hope, and not feeling alone. Anyway, the theme that I came up with was that we are all connected and nothing stands alone. And that's the benefit of I love this program, and as soon as I'm seeing all these people that I've never known, have never seen, our connection is that we're alcoholics. So we understand, and you could be from, I'm looking at Toronto, Montreal, all over, and at the beginning, Mary or Karen were talking about all the meetings they went to outside of their area, and traveled, a lot on business, and I would go to meetings, and all I would do was walk in because I was connected, they understood, and I wasn't alone anymore. And that was one of the biggest parts of this program for me. Um, I had a sponsor. He passed away, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. Joe Kerner was his name. I think he was 46 or 47 years sober. And ironically, he was my father's sponsor. So I'm second generation kind of drunk, and he's helped my son, almost a third generation, and but Joe was always the senior guy at the meeting. So I don't know if I said it, but my dad died 31 years sober. So Joe had such an impact on my family and our lives, and the things that he did. His just free to give. His philosophy was, oh, he went too far sometimes. What the heck? Give him another chance. Give him another chance. Well, how many times? The guy's drinking all the time, and he's give him another chance. But that's what it was for me, And one of his things that he would always say is, you got to have a date, an anniversary date, And he said, and he would was always right for people. If we put we'd publish the people's names on it, didn't have a date in there, and sure enough, that person would start drinking again. He was always right on that stuff, and things like I can smell alcohol in his breath, but he would always say, I don't want to believe it, but he was right all the time. He had that know-how, and everybody knew him. And I just held tight on him. I just held tight on him. So I'll talk about the steps and how important they are, and that one of the things that meant a lot to me, not early on, but at some point, because I when I started in the program, the words higher power was always in there, because we didn't want to offend anybody, whatever. And I didn't know what a higher power. I thought HP when I first somebody told me, I thought it was Hewlett Packard. It was like, oh, that can't be that. It, but because I knew who God was, that's how I was raised. I was Catholic grammar school, Catholic high school, and one of the things that's really kept me sober, too, is once I walked into the door and once I surrendered, there was no blame for anybody for my alcoholism. I did enough damage, and I know some people come in, you know, not so much complying, but yeah, compliance, for the courts or whatever, family and all that, and for me, mine was totally surrender. So when they contacted my son Joe, and I want to get back to the last time I drank. He was handpicked with me, and I went to Alexian Brothers in the Chicago area, and that was the start of it, for me. But um, things that happened in my life, the last couple of years were really really difficult, and that old saying, I can't live with it, I can't live without it. That jumping off period in the big book, that was certainly me. And um, the last night that I drank, it's still vivid in my brain. Um, I picked my son up. He was 13 with his friends at Scouts. See, I like to pick people up early, because I wasn't drunk then, or take them to the event. But picking him up was a problem. And somehow I got asked, how unfair was that? You asked me to do it at 7 o'clock, right? So I go to, and I go to it was about a mile away. I stop at the liquor store. I was drunk already and drinking a pint of vodka in the car, throw it out, picked all the kids up, and was driving pretty bad. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody. And one of my son, Andrew is his name's friends. And I was already in preparation the next day for what I was going to do with alcohol. So I put some empty pints in the trunk already. I was told, and by the way, I drank about a fifth every day, and I switched to plastic as Dr. Bob did, so you wouldn't rattle around, all of that kind of stuff in hiding spots. But I drank. My nickname with my original groups was Pop Off because I drink Pop Off vodka. It was cheap, and I could chug it, burnt wild, and then all that. So he came up, my other son Dan came up to the room, holding up two empties of Pop Off vodka, and asked me when I was going to quit. And I look back at that, and that was my first spiritual experience. And he's about 6'4". He should have beat me up that night, for my behavior and that. But I had nowhere to go, and I learned a little bit after that, it wasn't just physically getting around, as I had nowhere to go with me because I was a liar and a thief, and I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I would try to get up in the morning and look, and I say, I'm going to look myself in the mirror today, and I turned my head. I couldn't even do that. That's what I turned out to be, and that. So I just give you a couple other things. Really to show my alcoholism is driving drunk with my children many times. That still catches me, It's like, wow, and I did that with them. And I used to travel a lot, as I said. I remember going on a Sunday night already drunk because I could upgrade to first class because I drove a lot going into Pittsburgh, an area I didn't know, downtown. So it was Sunday night, and I finally found a liquor store on my feet in the rain, and I got in there just before it opened, before it closed, And then I remember walking out of that liquor store and thinking, what am I going to do now? I'm not sure where the hotel is, all of that kind of stuff. So I found it. I ran through a neighborhood I didn't even know. Sent my family on a trip to, I believe that one was to Florida, and I thought it was the greatest thing that I could take them to the airport and spend the next week drunk. Those kinds of things. I bought a pizza. I remember a half gallon of Absolute vodka so I could leave it out. I was watching a ball game and I ate two or three pieces and I looked and I said, what did I just do? And that was the continuation. My one son, Dan, he hated sports, so I'm coaching him in soccer, him and his brother, and hot day, and he's out for whatever, and it's a practice, and he comes up to me and he's spitting all over, and he said, Dad, I drank your water too. What was in there? And guess what was in there? I told him it was soap. Many years later, it's I came clean on that. Just one night I wanted to get to a basketball game because I was late. I had a van. I had my son. He was an infant, and because I was driving so fast, I didn't see the stop sign right away. Fortunately, I did strap him in in his chair, and he rolled in my van, because I hit the brakes so much, so fast, and those kinds of things. And um, there's more and more of those, and it goes on and on, and so I won't get in it, but you can tell I am definitely an alcoholic, and I always say I'm Jim. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm grateful to be here. That's just a habit because I am grateful every time I'm on a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when I did get into the program, some of you guys and gals, I can see you're about my age. We used to carry the pocket calendars. Remember those? And I still have that pocket calendar that I checked off each and every day that I was sober for that. It was 275 days because I got sober on March 6th through that year. What I would do is I would pray I would get through the night, and then as soon as I got up the next morning, I would run into my office and I would put an X on that day. And for that whole year, I almost said, probably annoyed people. I would say, I'm Jim, I'm an alcoholic, I'm sober 31 days, I'm sober 34 days. And I just didn't want to drink anymore. And, I'm grateful for that. So, um, I feel right now that we're connected. So I'll go through the steps just a little bit. I did it through the big book of what I just thought was important to me, and if you don't mind, and then I wrote down what each one kind of meant to me. Like step one, I said, only through utter defeat can we take this step. And for me, that I had that utter defeat, where we admitted we were powerless over alcohol in our lives, so it became unmanageable. And I was powerless over alcohol, and I knew then I couldn't control it. And was my life unmanageable? It was unmanageable at home. It was unmanageable at work. It was unmanageable with my neighbors. It was pretty a sad situation, and I admitted utter defeat. So my sponsor, Joe, who I mentioned, was affiliated with Alexian Brothers, and he made a contact. So I went there and filled out the forms, did them all wrong, did a breathalyzer. And the night before I went in, I drank just about a pint and a half, but I was still 0.06. And thank God I never had a car accident, never hurt anybody. Well, I had a car accident. That's a lie. I had a couple of them, but I never hurt anybody. Thank God. And because I drove drunk those last couple of years, every night. But as difficult as that was, the presence of my higher power and being humiliated, where I had nowhere to go anymore. just know where to go. And went to Alexian, and I just went there I went there 28 days, outpatient, and I just sat there and listened. I just sat there and listened and went to meetings. And then when I was out there, I looked at that pocket calendar and I was going to meetings 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 times, each day. And that, but certainly the progression was there, and the length of time that I drank was there. I started at 16 and got drunk then and drank till 52. So I drank 36 years. And that shift of where I couldn't live without it the last few years, where I lived on my past, whether it was work or anything like that. And um, thank God I was just willing to that I was just willing, and that really meant a lot to me. Um, so I went in with the first step, powerless, surrendering, and um, looking for some hope. And walking into those first meetings, I was starting to get some hope. I went to a meeting last week because of my anniversary, ran into some people I haven't seen in a while, and I just looked at each one of them and I could remember the things that they said that were so kind to me that helped me get through it, going to a meeting and getting hope. So the second step, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And my higher power was the group. And I mentioned to you, I did believe in God, but I didn't know how to get to him, because I did such a life of fear, and not only my alcoholism, but how I lived my life and tried to control my life. And I can remember when I got in, one of the pastors at our church. I called him finally and I said, Father, I'm an alcoholic, and my point is that he said, Jim, I'm going to pray for you, and they had AA meetings at that church and all that kind of stuff. Well, I got off the phone and the only thing I wanted to do was drink another fifth of vodka. My point is that I couldn't get, I couldn't get to that point yet. So step two, for me anyway, it was a bridge. It was a bridge to get to step three, at least glimpses of step three. So I constantly, that's why I went to so many meetings, and I would get some hope. One of the gals I ran into last week, I had a shirt on one time that said, "You're a great dad." I'm a great dad. Must have gotten it from my family, and I was disgusted, but I wore it. And she looked at me and she said, "You are a good dad." And it was like, wow, and I'll always remember that. But alcoholism blocked me, and a couple other guys in there that, because my situation, I had two sons I mentioned. One relationship was good. I went through a divorce. The younger one lived with me. The older one lived with his mother, and haven't didn't see him, and all of that. And anyway, these two guys, Bill Drew and Eddie Murphy, I remember their names, went through that same situation. They were sober many years and weren't seeing their kids. They would help me of ways maybe I could get in there. Love letters, birthday cards, just short things. And Dan, my older one, I wouldn't even use his name. Did you ever do that where somebody you don't like, you use them as a third party almost? And he looked at me one day and he said, "What's your other son's name?" And that just hit me. At least I couldn't even use my son's name because I was so mad at whatever I was in that. So the second step, the um, was really important, but it was the people, it was the meetings. I was willing then to start um, chairing meetings. I was willing to make coffee as people were talking about. I was willing to pick people up, and that was important. There was a Saturday Sunday meeting, and after I finished the Saturday meeting, I didn't know what I was going to do the rest of the day. And so I just couldn't wait to the Sunday meeting to get back there. That's how much you guys and gals have impacted impacted my life. And I counted on it, I counted on it. And that was really helpful. So one and two, I was doing pretty good with it. And then we get into step three, make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. Um, I was willing to do it, and as I mentioned, trying to bridge into it because I believed in it. Uh, but what happened with me here, and why this impacted me so much was what should have happened. My sponsor was an atheist, but he gave so much to and all of that we never directly talked about God and that kind of stuff. It's not blaming him by any means, but by not working a little bit more diligent or understanding third step, um, I did a fourth and fifth, but skipped parts of that, and I'll get into that, and especially six and seven. So, what happened with me, which was so important, I was given a lead. Another guy helped me. I didn't know him that well, and he after I gave that lead, he said, "You're not doing good," and I said, "Boy, I'm not." I told him, I said, "I remember this. I feel like I got a ball of cancer in my stomach." 2 days later, I'm up in New Mallory, Iowa, about now 2 hours from Chicago, and it was Father Xavier who was a monk. And my point is how this started. He said to me, "Jim, we're going to start with the third step, and we're going to get on our knees." And I didn't tell him this, but I'm thinking I don't get on my knees. I'm still fighting this, and sure, so we did, and this is a monk, so he's higher levels than a priest, if you're born, in the Catholic Church and all that. But yeah, he said we're going to start right here, and I remember the humility. I remember my knees, and I remember reciting it to him, and that was a big start for me going through the steps. I was 2 years sober, still feeling really crappy. And when you're in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, if you skip steps, you're going to feel crappy, you know. And so we did that. And one of the other things, my guy that from our other meeting, he talked about it, and I kept it in my mind. And that was the third step is so important when he does it with people, he has them date it in the book, just like your anniversary date that you did the third step, and that was really good, and again, this as I look back, it really opened the door, as they say in the big book in the 12 and 12, the willingness, just keep moving forward with it, and just keep moving forward with it. So um before I move to the fourth step, one of the things I do want to read is the third step prayer on page where am I at here? And yeah, no, it can't be. Is it 63? I wrote the wrong page down. Where is it? Step six. That can't be right. Anyway, I'll if I can find it, it's the third step prayer. I'll paraphrase it. My creator. And take all of me. And one of the things that I'll get into is I pray and meditate every morning now. That thirst I used to have for alcohol, I have for this program and the spirituality of this, of this program. I'm sorry, I can't remember the page it was on, but that's okay. But I know how I feel about it, and sometimes I can get up in the morning and just read that third step prayer and thank God for giving me this opportunity, but I have to open the door, they say, in willingness, to be able to do it, And one of the other things I wanted to say that was important to me in the steps of the program, they're in that order of one through three. And somebody, I read this or heard it, you get right with God, and then 4 through 7, you get right with yourself. 8 and 9, you get right with others. So you can look in the world, but so 1 through 3 is really trying, even though you're trying your best through your higher power, through the group and all of that, to get right with your higher power first, because the rest of the steps, for me, really apply that. Without him or with him, more importantly, I got a better chance at this thing. I got him on my side now. And then going into the third step. So in the fourth step, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, and um this is where I really I messed up, initially. And I'll tell you the reason, because I created such a financial debt for myself that I kept that hidden. And without bringing that portion out, I was hiding a lot of other things. And what I wanted to do is not drink for my kids, so I ran right to 9 and made amends to my kids, and that worked out okay. But just that whole part. So think about an honest program and not being honest, at least for a couple of years, or making an effort for them. That's why I went through it. I would not recommend that to anybody, and I've learned through other people who have had financial problems, kind of like me. Um, um, Tell it, and then they went through it, and it's not that you pay it all back, right? But at that time, but at least you got it relieved, you got it off of off of your shoulders. And so I missed that, and I was still letting my instincts, my fear, my ego, still making alibis for things and all of that. And that's no way to live a, that's no way and that's why you got to follow these steps and do them to the best of your you know best of your ability. And I learned, once I did that, many years later, I'm talking many years later, with the financial part of it, I paid some of it back, and I'm good with it now. Knows I'm good, but I still had, some that were bothering me, a heating and air conditioning guy, those kinds of things, landscaper that I never paid. And I went to another guy and said, I got a problem. This is still bothering me. And I'm telling you, this is 12, 13, 14 years sober. So I wrote him down and I said, here's what I'm going to pay back and how I'm going to do it. And so if I bought donuts for an AA meeting, that counted. That was $8 or $10 towards paying this back for people I couldn't reach. But I remember how much better I felt that I did that. So I would suggest we don't wait for that. So yeah, I'll keep moving here. Step 5: admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And when I, again, this was really important. Again, most importantly, the second time, because the isolation went away. I didn't feel like I was alone in my head anymore. Then I could move forward with that. And it gives you just a great peace of mind. Great peace of mind for me. So step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And what I found, this step, I continue to work on, because that's what drove me. What really controlled me was my fear. I was a runner, and I learned through Karen, by the way, not long ago, that it really wasn't the fear as the defect, it was my ego. And that is something that I'm working on. That is my 2025 thought process, that I'm not that important, and those kinds of things. So what would happen to me is my ego, it would get deflated and then I'd run away. I was a runner. I wasn't a fighter, I was a runner. And by doing this step, and then in step 7, without having getting some humility, just like I did when I walked in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and to look at them. Um, and what helped me with these is the drop the rock helped me a lot, but somebody told me don't look at all those defects. Pick one or two that are constantly bothering you and work on those. And I would pray for those one or two, and eventually they would dissipate or they would lessen, where they weren't creating all this problem for me. And another guy from our group, he called it. I wrote this down. He called it the FID was how long. He calls it the frequency. How often does it happen? The intensity of it, and duration. How long does it last? And going into step 10, when I can work on them, accept the ones that I have, change the ones that need to be changed or reduce them. That was really important. And then all of a sudden, I started to learn words like tolerance, love. And prior to this program, it was always isolation, it was being alone, it was fear of this and fear of that. So I'm starting to see that that shift. So, and then the third step prayer I mentioned. Then there was the 7-step prayer, and I won't get into that, but um, that they all work in prayer and meditation for me. So. Um, step 8 and 9 made a list of all people we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all, and made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do those injure them or others. And I mentioned before, I went after a very short period of time. I went and talked to my sons. I took them to their favorite restaurants, and I needed to do it because they were 14 and 13, and all they wanted was a sober dad, right? And so that was really important. Uh, I did I think it was my ex-wife at the time. It was pretty close. I can remember it. And the benefit of that was she came back to my kids and said, I never did it. And I knew the date, I knew the time, and I knew it. That's why we do them. And then as time went on, um, I had my two sisters who both have passed away in the last couple years, but they just helped me so much. They would talk to me and give me guidance, and they were raising families, so I made amends to them, and the best I could with my mom. She was about 90, those kinds of things. So, um, what's significant for me was, and I wrote this down, is it's always in my big book on 8 and 9, where you look back, you repair, try to fix the ones you can and the ones you're smart. But I wrote down build new relationships. So not only are we building new relationships with people we knew that we did, but the benefit of this program is we're making new relationships with everybody else, new people we meet in the street because we can look at them now, and I don't have a bad relationship right now. I just don't, and I'll get into that, and I'll share probably the most important part of my program now is my son, who I mentioned, who I haven't seen in maybe a handful of times in 20 years. He got married last December, and I walked him down the aisle. That's the program at work. That just gives me goosebumps, and I can share this with you because I got it from you. If I was still drinking and or still acting like I was, he's grown up too, he's 34 now, and that's we talk almost every night. I just again wrote him and his brother a love letter. Where would I be able to? I wouldn't be able to do that without this program. So step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it. And I'll just say this, the most important, this was my 2023, 2024 thing I needed to work on because promptly I didn't follow the word promptly. I would get into a fix, and oftentimes maybe it's always at home, and so my wife would go here, I'd go to, and okay, God, this is in your hands. That well, how much longer is it going to be in your hands, God? 2 months, 3 months? You know what I mean? It's just dumb. So I looked at the word promptly, and so anytime a situation comes up, not only at home but elsewhere within a short period of time, I usually walk away, got to think about it, and I'll just go in there and say, did I say something wrong and all that, um, and it goes away. It just goes away. So I would definitely suggest that. And what I do with that too, and Mary talked about this in her when she would do step 9. Is there anything else? And that would really close the door on it. Now, okay, we covered it. Is there anything else to be covered? And if the answer is no, the answer is no. Then I've done my part. Now, step yeah, here at step 11 is something that I practice as much as I can every day. I take necessary time in the morning. I have my seat, I have my cup of coffee. And I've been going to other meetings that are spiritual, and it's continuing to change where I don't read right away. I'll sit and try to absorb God's love, till I can say yes in my mind, and then I'll read some different things here and I. But the saw through prayer and meditation that gets me. That's my invitation to God to improve my conscious contact with God, so I can start to feel His presence, and then as they say, praying for only a knowledge of His will. Now I have access to my higher power. And I can tell you the longer I'm in the program, the more I get it. Now I'm talking, I can look at people and I can tell them my family, my kid, I can just tell them I love them. And then I can look at them now and I can say, I really do love you. And that's a result of this program. And then the power to carry that. Now I got the power because I have my presence with my higher power, which is God. And then in the 12th step, after having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. So I'm always having spiritual awakenings for sure. Um, and it's just every day is, I'm just grateful that I'm not drinking and all of that. But and carry this message. And I do. After I get to know people a little bit in and out of the program, my alcoholism comes up. I don't hide it, and I don't blab it, but I just don't hide it. And it was something I still work part-time, and something I put on Facebook, and I don't get on there a lot, but I had 20 years, and there were two people from this place of work that came to me and talked about it and how much they were in problems with alcohol, that kind of stuff. And what's interesting is in the big book, or the 12 and 12, to carry to practice principles in all our affairs, that chapter is like 20 pages. Practices in our affairs is about 75% of it. So this is so, that's the difficult part, but that's why the steps are so important, and I know if I have a problem, there's going to be an answer in one of the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I think we're time. I think I'll just end with that, Karen. That's good enough.